Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Njist invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Njist.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. And today I have another amazing and special guest joining me, which I know I say all the time, but it's true. They're all special and amazing to me. Because if they're taking time out of their day to spend it with me for an hour, then they're very special in my book. So I'm appreciative and grateful. But we're going to have fun, Julie. So what I'd like you to do is introduce yourself to my audience, who you are, what it is you do. And then, like I always say, then we're going to rock and roll.
Sounds good. My name is Julie Barth, and I am the mother of six and a writer. And I released a book about my challenges, and I'm the founder of the charity called Colin Barth Outreach.
Wow. Okay. So that was a mouthful. So
That was a mouthful.
Like not only being a writer I mean, you have the toughest job, right? A mother of six. And like we were talking about, you have a daughter in college right now, which is always fun, right? And amazing to see our kids go on and do their own thing and thrive in this world. But let's talk about a little bit, go back as far as you want and talk about those challenges you just mentioned and, you know, what got you into writing and what you do and stuff like that.
Sure. I was married to my grammar school sweetheart, and we ended up getting married after he was my first kiss in sixth grade. And we had our first son, and then we got pregnant again with our second daughter. And from the get-go of the pregnancy, like she just wasn't growing. And it was like a series of, 9 months of being told that she wasn't going to be able to breathe or she had a genetic malfunction. But yet we would go into the ultrasounds and there was nothing wrong with her per se. She was perfectly formed. And so after about 37 weeks, it literally was one thing after another, they decided to deliver her. And it was back in the early 2000s. So, technology wasn't as good. The internet wasn't as good. And when she came out, she was only about 3 pounds. So from there, it was just, she was in the NICU and it was, 40 different surgeries. And we found out at the age of 3 that she has something called Primordial Dwarfism, which, for those of you who don't know about dwarfism, she's small, but she's like proportionately small. So right now she's 24 years old and she's 24 pounds. So there was, getting her to a stage where she was okay because there was medical malpractice but she started doing great and soaring and things started taking off. And then right as she was doing better, we had 2 more children and life was, going along swimmingly. And then all of a sudden, my husband, Colin, just wasn't feeling well. And he went into the hospital really. And at that point, we were told that he had 2 weeks to live because he had pancreatic cancer. My youngest was 6 months and my oldest was about 10. And basically what they said is take him home. He's got 2 weeks to live and let him say goodbye. So we didn't. I got busy and I said, no, he's not, he's going to make it longer. And he did. He made it about 16 months, some good, some bad. But in that interim, I would go down to chemo with him in the mornings on Tuesdays. And he didn't really, I thought it was going to be like a great time for us to reconnect, because we were in the midst of 4 kids and a special needs kid. And I was like, oh, great. We'll have time together. And it kind of didn't work out that way. So I was there. I was coming off the throes of, 40 plus surgeries with Tatym and all of the craziness that went on with her. So I started writing her book on my BlackBerry. I had a little BlackBerry and I was texting it.
those.
and I would email it back to myself. So necessarily it all kind of flowed into present day what he was going through. And so I would take all of those emails and email them back to myself, and I piece them together. And that's so the book is called Notes from a BlackBerry. So it's, just the story of his journey and her journey. And, it's raw and it's amazing. And I just wanted to show his courage and his strength. So I released that last April after kind of round two came. And after he passed away, I got into a very toxic, dangerous, horrible relationship, domestic emotional abuse. And after that was resolved and finished, I went back to the original. I hadn't read the book. It was sitting on my laptop for 12 years. I just didn't have the heart. So I read it, and, it was never meant for the universe, but I decided at that point, feeling, powerful, and the strength that I felt, and, getting past the second hurdle, that I was going to release it. So I did that in April, and I started a charity in my first husband's name to help women who are being emotionally, financially, and or economically abused and are in the process of divorce, because you kind of like stand to lose everything in a minute. So it's kind of
I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I'm like, okay, we talked about before this, everybody, and I said, you're going to tell your story, and right, little did I know. Yes, I knew about her book, and that's awesome, right? I remember those BlackBerries. Those are like one of the first cell phones, right? Like that are first, like having everything in one hand, like we have nowadays, but wow, I'm sitting here listening to you, right? To go through that, because one, at least that from what I know and having done my research and stuff like that, when you give someone that pancreatic cancer diagnosis, they say it's pretty much like, especially if you catch it late, and that had to be tough, right? Because you and your husband at the time, right, are taking care of your children. You have one special needs child, and then you get hit with that. And talk about, this is what resilience is all about. And this is where I always say moms have the toughest job ever, right? Because you heard her. It's like she didn't fold and say, oh, okay, we're just going to make it comfortable and we're going to let it happen. She's like, nope, I got busy, right, to make sure I kept as long as I could, right? Which right there just shows me so much about your character and the strength you have as a human being, right? But let's talk about, because that's got to be tough when you're the mother and then you're the wife and you're trying to take care of your husband, you're trying to take care of the kids. How did you take care of yourself, right? Because that, right, and you're looking at me, she's like, well,
I'm still here, so I had to at some level, right?
Right, but I'm saying, it's hard to do that, like what we think about self-care and all that, right, when we're going through something like that, because like I know from the mothers I know, like yourself, like everything else goes out of the picture. I'm taking care of my kid, like leave me, I'm going to take care of my husband and my children. There's, how did you, because I think my audience needs to understand like that even in your tough times, you found time to take care of yourself and find the support you needed. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And a lot when people ask me that, I'm a huge runner. I've always been a runner. I was that kid. I was, back in the 70s, I would say, I'm going to go for a run. And my parents were like, why? Where are you running to? But it's,
why?
yeah,
Really, why?
yeah. Why? Who's chasing you? With my little sports Walkman. But that's always just been for me. And especially during that time, it was like once I would get in the speed of it, and it was a place where no one could ask me a question, no one could bother me, and I didn't have to feel anything. It was like I used all of my energy to become numb, and numb at that point was such a good feeling, just to not have that feeling of someone chasing you or something to do, or, it was just that state of like nothingness. I talk about that a lot in my book. Just to escape what you're doing for like an hour. And I did. I would take off and I would come back an hour later and I was a completely different person. So that was kind of just me time. I know that doesn't sound like everyone's cup of tea, but I think everyone has to have that moment where they just like can leave everything, and escape. That's not, I think that's probably why there's such a problem with alcoholism. And, you just need that time where you don't have to worry about anything but breathing. And that was my time. And I would say the other thing is, as a mom, I never saw it as, because of like all the other stuff going on, being a mom was the only thing that really saved me and brought me joy. So, I would disappear for hours. I would take my little kids and I would hide in the basement and I would lock the world out and we would, take out their microphones, and just being in that pure moment of like, because they didn't know what was going on, and being able to experience the fact that in their world, nothing was happening besides, the day-to-day fun. It was like when I was with them doing that, I could pretend as they didn't know that I didn't know, and we were just having fun times. So that was another one of my escapes.
That takes a lot of strength, I mean, to make sure you took the kid to shield them, because at a young age, they wouldn't really understand anyway. But I mean, to make them feel like everything was okay had to have been tough on you. You know what I mean? I mean, because you're holding in, yes, you have your running. I'm going to tell you something, and my audience is going to be, oh, here he goes again, right? But I'm not a runner, never have. Like, I like the sprints because I knew it was going to be done quickly, right? And
Yeah, right.
do the long distance, I'm like, oh, please, no, coach, please. But anyway, but a lot of the books I have read, like, I don't know if you know who David Goggins is, right? He's an ex-Navy SEAL who loves those ultra marathons, right? And
Right.
that's how
Mhm.
he became a SEAL. And then after he retired, that's the thing he pushes himself, that like he finds his, peace in being comfortable, being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't know the guy. I mean, except from his Instagram posts. And I messaged him one day, not, knowing he might not get it. Or if he did, he probably laughed. I'm like, yo, Mr. Goggins, like, I'm a counselor, but here's my offer to you. I said, anytime you need counseling, I will do a pro bono, because anyone who runs the distances you do there's something going on that is far deeper than just, and I had to laugh.
Yeah.
I sent it, right. And
All right.
my old supervisor that would run the Boston Marathon, the New York Marathon. And I told him too, I said, I know you've been doing this longer than me, but I'm a counselor now. But if you ever need free counseling, I will sit down with you. And he'd always laugh at me and go, Max, I admit I am not a runner. That's not how I find my escape. Right. But
I think you either are or you're not, because I have children, and I've always tried to like gear them toward that, because that's such an outlet, whether it's running or working out, or, just challenging yourself and getting to that, like I said, that state of like focus on nothing but challenging whatever it is, your goal. And it's like a daily goal that you can achieve, and you put all your heart into it. And it's,
no. And I think we need more people like you that would present that to our kids as a goal, right? Because, us growing up in the 80s, and right, they made partying look like it was the thing to do. And trust me, I got to that, so
Yeah.
that's off to you. Like, if running was your escape, I mean, that's much healthier than the escape I found when my times got tough back. I'm almost 22 years sober, but I know what you mean, because our media makes, like, even today, like some of the movies I see, and I still go, wow, they make that look so fun. Right. But luckily my brain is programmed to go, it's not fun, Max. Just that's a movie. Remember?
Right. Yeah. And it's no fun in the morning. And I will say that, like, I'm from the Midwest and we are drinkers. That's what we do. We hunker down for 8 months out of the year and we sit in bars.
Right.
So, yeah. So when he got pancreatic cancer, I mean, the last thing I wanted to do was pick up a drink. And we were, social drinkers. And that's one of the ways that I knew something was up, because he would have like one drink and just be like, bottomed out. But I did during that whole time, not drink. I couldn't be with him and think, you're going through this, and how could I possibly, find escape in something you can't? Not that he could run either, but I just kind of felt an allegiance to him, like we're in this together. So it was probably the only like true numbing slash like way to escape the situation that I was in.
Right. And I've always heard there's that runner's high, but I've always, like, I'll tell you, I've never experienced it, never will, but I believe you. I will take you at your
Well, never say never. I mean, there's still time.
I, but that, I mean, how do I put this? Because, I'm just thinking about those times you're going through. At least you had something I would call a healthy escape, right? You're running and your time to be with yourself and be present with yourself. Because from what I do hear about, my niece was the same way. And, she would go, even after drinking with us at night, she'd get up early and go run. That was her. I'm like, you're, but she said that
We are crazy. Yeah.
was her meditation time, actually, right? As while she
Right.
to just focus on one foot in front of the other and block everything out. And for that hour, like you said, she didn't have any worries whatsoever. And, because going through what you went through, from what I'm hearing, that's for anybody very tough to go through. And then I like how you just kept track, and emailed yourself. Like, when did you realize, like, late, how far was it after your husband passed that you realized, like, I could I could make this a book, like, or
Well, so yeah, like I didn't write it to put it out in the universe. I wrote it because we had four little kids. I'm a writer now by trade, but I wasn't. Like I have psychology and a master's in public health. But I had always feared, first of all, that he wouldn't make it. And I wanted, I started writing Tatym's story because it was so unbelievable. And I think that there was this part of me that had to make sense of it through writing it all down. Cause I was like, what just happened here? Because it was literally 4 years of medical malpractice and surgeries and misdiagnoses. And, it was like just everything. And I think it was like I was sitting in front of him with a thing in my hand and all this time on my hands, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to write Tatum's story. And then after I kind of got some of that down, I thought, well, I really should start documenting all of these things that Colin did to stay with his kids, because I kind of in my heart knew he wasn't going to be around, and I wanted my children, I wrote it for my kids really, because I wanted them to know of his strength and who he was and how hard he fought to stay here. And Tatum too, it was like the combined strength of those two and how hard they fought to stay here, because there's no reason Tatum should be here, like none. And not a spoiler alert, but after Colin passed away, I'm coming out with my second book. Tatum ended up, the one who has special needs, ended up getting cancer, a rare form of cancer that had nothing to do with the original dwarfism. So, it's like she is either the luckiest of the unluckies or the most unlucky of the luckiest. Can't figure out. But I think it was just really, I felt like it needed to be documented. And I'm so happy I did, because when I 12 years later, I unpacked it and I was like, I would have forgotten so much of that stuff happened. And when you read it, it's just like, it's incredulous, the incredulous nature of what they both went through. You talk about running and how hard that is, but the marathon that those two were on and all the things they overcame is just, it's something that's why I put it out into the world, because I wanted their spirit to be known by other people, because we can all start to get down and feel like it's the worst thing that's ever happened. But when you sit back and you realize it, there's always somebody worse off than you. Always. You don't know what other people, are dealing with, but nobody gets out of this life without hardship. And when you recognize that, know everybody's got their stuff, you stop feeling a little less unfortunate about your own situation.
right. And I love that, right? That's why I try to lead with gratitude and kindness always, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know what that stranger who might have gotten mad at me for some reason, right? is going through what, so I'm not going to react and, like I used to back when I was younger, like, who do you think you are? Now it's like, maybe they're going through something I don't know about. Right. And what a gift you gave your children, right, to document what your husband and Tatym went through. Like, they're my inspiration now, as well as you, right? Like, the people that fought to be with their family, and, and like what you're telling me about Tatym, right? And then she gets cancer. Oh my gosh. Like,
I mean, it truly was unimaginable. And it was like, so she's a little person, which is like one in a million. And then she gets this rare connective tissue cancer that only like 30 patients in the United States have, and they're all over the age of like 60, and it's like,
right. Yeah.
and, yeah. And the good news is that she's in remission, and knock on wood, it won't come back. But the bad news is that the only way to treat it was removal. So she had like her whole right side torso removed and legs grafted. And, after seeing the first 40 surgeries, and she got a break, and then all of a sudden right back at it, again, it would be very easy for both of us to, more her than me, but just to fold and say, you know what, I give. Like, this is unimaginable, unfair. But what really kind of made me put the book about Colin and her out there is that Tatym is made through it. Like, again, she's 24, and she started doing art on her own, and her like little simple drawings, she just became this artist. And with 6 kids and the chaos of our house, she would show me stuff, and I'd be like, oh, that's great, Tate. Well, one day she came to me and she showed me her pieces, and I like stopped, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're like an artist. Like, you did this all on your own. Everything you've been through, as tiny as you are, she can barely walk, she can, and she's just doing this artwork. And I'm like, you know there's a reason why she's here. And I believe in the universe, and the universe telling you things. And I saw it, and I was like, this is supposed to be for a higher purpose. And that's when I was like, I'm, releasing this book. Her art is online. Her art is going to fund our charity. And, you know, just, it was just like I said, it was an aha moment where I was like, something bigger is supposed to come from all of this, what looks like a horrible, because a lot of people feel sorry for me. They're like, oh my gosh, like, poor you. And I guess, but I don't feel that way. I wouldn't change anything I've been through. I wish I wouldn't, the people I love hadn't suffered, but everything that I've been through has made me who I am. So,
Right. Like, that's, you've been for, like, iron sharpens iron, I think. Right. And God took you and he said, I'm going to do some work with her, as well as Tatym and your husband while he was here on this earth. Right. Like, you can tell Tatym, for me, she has a new fan, and I'll get the information. I want to check out her artwork. But if you're listening, everybody, right, this is the kinds of things that make me grateful for all the challenges I've gone through and overcome. Right. And here, because I'm like you, there was a time where I didn't believe in any of that. I was actually really angry. Right. But I have a strong faith now that, I call him God or the universe. And he's kept me around for a reason. Right now, right now I'm a grandfather of 10, right, with 11,
oh, well.
12 coming. So I jokingly talk to him and go, I know you got a sense of humor, but I'm really too young for all these grandchildren, but I will do my best. Right.
Your second round. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And my daughter, who's my youngest, my baby, is having twin boys, but they're fraternal twins. One's a little older than the other. But, at the same time, it's exciting, right? Because all the things, like, I think about, like, in listening to your story, the things I missed with my kids, right? Because of my addiction, or the things I try to make up for, like, I can do differently through my grandkids and leave that legacy of, right, Grandpa is a good guy. Right. Like, he says what he means, and he means what he says. And he does what he says he's going to do it. Right. And that's what I want to leave. Right. For anybody in my family and the world, is to show that, right, never give up. Like you're a perfect example of not giving up on yourself,
Yeah.
your family.
Well, thank you.
Right. And you are definitely an inspiration to me, because that's, And I know you probably had those moments where you were by yourself and you just cried, right? And that's what you had to do.
Oh, yeah.
And I've had moments like that too, but I think the universe, like you said, has bigger purposes for both of us. That's why he brought you to me today, and you get to be here on the podcast. And I'm so honored to hear your story and to hear what has happened in your life, because we need more people like you out there that are fighters and not going to give up, right? To show others that just because you go through a hard time means you wave the white flag and you give up, because you don't know what's in store for you, right? It's okay to struggle and fight through those struggles, because I'm of the belief that we go through those, right? Because the universe wants us to learn a lesson, right?
Hmm. Absolutely. Yes.
And sometimes if we don't learn that lesson, they'll have us go through, the universe will have us do it again until he goes or she goes, did you learn it yet? And you're like, yes, I surrender.
I know.
My lesson, right? But that's,
Yeah.
I think what forges us into being better people is not giving up on ourselves. And especially if we have loved ones, right, where we go, we got a big why, right? Like you have a big why, which is your family. And what I'm getting at is, right, when I have something that big, I'm not going to quit. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Right? Because
Well, I think, you have two choices when you're presented with a challenge or a heartbreak. Is you can you can let it change you to be angry and negative, and you can choose to say play the victim, and not that we're all victims of something. Or you can choose to say, I'm going to make something positive come out of this, because that's ultimately what life is about, isn't it? Like, who wants to walk around, carrying all of their, I think sometimes we all carry a backpack of all of like the things that happen to us, the thing, and we let it like harden us and make us callous and change us in ways that rob our joy.
right,
So, I always hear that like forgiveness is for you, and it is hard to forgive, but if you don't, people move on and you're holding it. And so I think that trauma is kind of like that too. Like I could have said, many times, like, why me? But it doesn't help, and why me? Well, I'll tell you why me, because the universe is trying to tell me that Tatym has a purpose here. There's no doubt in my mind that that kid, if she had not had the rough start she had, she would be like, a leader of industry. Here she is, 24, she had some brain damage, she's had cancer, and, she's posting her stuff on Facebook, and she has like a business going, and I don't even know about it. She's like pulling out money. I'm like, where'd you get that money from? She's like, posting all of her stuff. And I was like, oh, she just wants so badly to be a part of this world. And so that was really the driving force behind me. I don't want to put myself out there. I don't really particularly like telling my story, but it's really not my story. It's the joy in being connected to these two amazing people that can't speak for themselves for whatever reason that is. So I feel like it's my duty to speak for them.
right. Your job as a mother and wife to put them out there so everybody can see what kind of people you were surrounded by, that who have made you who you are today, right? Which I love that you say the universe, right? Because like sometimes I know I should speak for myself only, but there's times I question the things they do. And like I said, I always go, sometimes I lead with, you're funny. Like, I don't like what you're doing. I think you're funny, but like, can we tone it down a little bit? Right.
Right.
Sure. You've been through that for,
Oh, 100%. And it's like, I say that I do a lot of, and then, like I feel like my life is a series of, and, I'll tell someone something and they'll be like, oh my gosh. And then I'll be like, and then, and they go like gasp, like, there's more. And I'm like,
what do
oh,
you mean?
wait for
Yeah,
it.
like what do you mean? There's more. And then their eyes get big. Right. But that's,
Yeah. And yeah,
you know what I mean? And you're like, yeah, that's just the
makes
way.
me colorful.
And it's made me who, as you would say, maybe who I am today, right? Because I always look at things not yeah, I go after goals, right? But I also look at like the universe, God has, okay, you've accomplished that. Now let's push yourself even more. Right. And I'm sure like you, like there's days I'm like, okay, God, I'm going to lay in bed for a little bit. Can you give me a little break? You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to cover my
Uh-huh.
with the blankets and get under the blankets and just pretend I'm not here. And, God, for some reason finds like pull the blankets back and go, no, you're not off that easy. Let's get,
Right.
and, you know what I mean? Like if I didn't, uh, face the challenges head on that I have faced, I wouldn't be sitting here with you and having this conversation, right? And showing the world, right? Like, look at Julie. She's had a big smile on her face. And now I can honestly say when we release it on the YouTube channel, you'll see it because we're both smiling. We're having a good time. But there's one thing that you said that that stuck out that, is to the effect is like there was something bigger than you that drew you to do that, right? Like, and it was your, and I would love to have Tatym on the podcast one day and share her story and see her art so she can show the world, right?
Oh yeah, she would love it. Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about that after if that's okay with her and you.
Yeah, sure.
But now I lost my train of thought, but like hearing you share your story, there's so many probably moments that you could look at it in your life where you want, say after your husband passed and then she got can't, like you just want to say, I quit, like someone else take over, right? But that's the kind of inspiration that I draw from you is because you got stronger. You may not have recognized it, but look where you're at today and look what you're doing with your family and yourself. And now you have a book for the world to see what kind of person you are. And I mean that in a good sense, right? Like, yes, I went through the struggles because you never know what someone's going through. That's why when funny story, like early in recovery, like I used to, like when I finally realized drugs and alcohol were not my thing, I had to stop. Anger became my drug of choice, right? And then people cut me off on the freeway. I'd chase them all the way home. And right, funny story. Like I say this, remind my audience, yes, I chased this dude and he pulled into his parking, his driveway, and I parked behind him, like facing, like a T. And I watched this guy get out of his car, Julie. And it was like when he got out and blocked the sun, I said, I got to change because I'm going to die today. If I don't. I kept looking, I'm looking out the window and I'm going, oh my Lord, this guy's huge. I said, sorry, wrong person, sir, wrong house.
Oops.
I told my sponsor and he's like, yeah, but that's a whole other podcast. But like, idiot was my nickname for a while, right? And I go, yes, I'm going to do what you say. Whatever you suggest, I'll do it. But I think moments like that and what you've gone through are the ones that shape us, right? Because we come to that crossroads. We could go left or right? And we know that maybe left is the wrong way to go. And I've made that choice many times. But I hear Julie, right?
Oh, I have too. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I've taken the wrong turn myself.
Right.
But I think the wrong turn is what you have to take, to find out what the right turn is. So
exactly. And that's what I was going to get at, right? Is like knowing that like yourself making those mistakes, you learn from them. And that's the whole purpose I want the audience to understand is like she learned from those lessons, right? And she made the correction and pivoted and and here she is today to talk about her family and her, her husband and her daughter who are amazing people, right? Probably looking, her husband looking down on us and going, thumbs up, share that story. I love, because that's tough, right? Like we lost our granddaughter 5 years ago now at 3 months and a day old. And you go through something like that. And that's when I question, but I didn't do it for long. But you go like, okay, this isn't, like why?
Yeah, it seemed senseless at the time. And if you can't make sense of it, it will drown you.
Exactly. But thank God I had people like you in my life or mentors that said, there's something you're supposed to learn from this and then teach other people about it, right? Because one day someone's going to come to you and how did you do that? Right. And I'm the grandpa. Yeah, I was there in the emergency room. And so when you're talking about your husband and your daughter, and I'm like, man, like those are traumatic events in our lives that, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't wish on our worst enemy.
No. And you can be there like instantly. All I have to do is think about it. I'm in that room. I hear all the sounds. I hear, everything.
Yep.
Yeah.
So moving forward, I want to ask you some questions that I love to ask, right? And it goes
Mhm.
start with the title of my podcast, which is the same of my book, right? Fearless, right? Because I know the audience is going, I want to hear what she says, what her definition of fearless is, right? Going through what she's already over here grinning. So
No, I'm thinking.
knowing that I put fearless is, what does that mean to you, Julie? And how does that show up in your life? Like, what does that look like for you today, going through what you've been through?
I think being fearless is being true to yourself. We all have those parts of ourselves that we don't like, that we want to ignore, that we want to push down, that we are embarrassed to show to others. And we hide, but I think we spend a whole lot of time hiding. And once I think fearlessness is about like, opening that book and letting everybody see you in your nakedness, whatever that is, and saying, go ahead, judge all you want. I am who I am. I'm proud of who I am. I'm okay with who I am. And I know I'm a good person. So I don't need to hide those parts of me I don't like anymore. I don't need to cover them up. I don't need to find ways to push them away. I'm going to be me, whether people like it or not, and be okay with it. And I think that's something that was probably the theme of my life is worrying so much about what other people think or how I appear to others or and being the age that I am been going through whatever I went through, that freedom and fearlessness of saying it's okay if you don't like me. I'm okay with that because I like me and I know what's in my heart and I know I'm a good person and I know what my thoughts are and I'm okay with them. So that's what fearless means to me, and it's a hard thing to do.
Right. Well, and it's hard in our society, right? Where everybody's judging you by the way you look, the things you have, right? The cars, whatever.
Even your expression, the way that you deal with things, the way that you approach people, you know,
That's
that I
why,
wear flip-flops instead of heels. I don't, like everything means something to somebody, but really the only person you have to worry about is what it means to you. And at the end of the day, if I can look in the mirror and I know that I've tried my hardest for the day, I've treated people with respect, and I've always sought to make other people and myself happy, then it doesn't matter what other people think of me because they
did you,
don't know me. So,
did you hear that, everybody? I say that all the time. I said, I know I've arrived, right? When I can look in the mirror and smile at the man that's looking back at me. Because for a long time I couldn't, right? And that's all that counts, right? If you know you've done your best to be helpful to others during the day, you've not hurt anybody, you know what I mean, and put a smile
yeah,
on your face, that's a pretty good. I think it's a
it's
pretty
a
good.
good day. Yeah, it's not easy. I mean, we all, have a bad day and yell at some customer service person, and that turns their day, and they turn the next person's day. And, it's like, it's just about, trying every day to wake up and be the best version of yourself, regardless of whether you slip or you don't. The intent is to be the best person you can be.
Absolutely, right? Because especially if we have little ones like you and I, well, in my case now, even littler ones, grandchildren, right? Because they're always the people you think are not looking are the ones that are looking, right?
Oh, yeah.
And especially kids and grandkids, right? And I'm like, ooh, I have to be very careful, but I get what you're saying and I love it. So that will lead me into my next question, right? Happiness. As you can see, I put a Y in it. What does happiness mean to you today? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
I think that happiness is found in the little things. It's not, I don't think it's a global thing. If somebody came to, for a long time, I thought it was kind of like, you know, happiness was finding a space where like everything was going well, you know. But I think happiness is being in a state where things aren't going well and you're still happy in the moment because there's no such thing as like perpetual happiness. I think we all have this like, you know, vision of like once we get someplace or once we've achieved something or once we've retired or we, whatever it is we think we need to attain to be happy, like you hold yourself back and you don't just, I think happiness is like literally in, watching, I'm in a volleyball tournament with my daughter, watching her serve and make like one play. What more is there than that moment, and taking those little moments and building a life around them instead of choosing to see all the other distractions that, hold you down and don't make you happy.
Right.
Like driving 2 hours to see it.
Or driving in Orange County or LA traffic, right? Like that will
Right.
happiness. If you can find those little things, like you said, then yes, of course, you can be happy no matter what. Man, this is just, I can't say how much of a great time I've had so far. This has been a wonderful time. And I'm so glad you took me up on being a guest, because I love what I've heard from you, and the strength you have as a person, right, is very inspiring. Right. Like, and I know you're the same way as me. Like, we don't want everybody to go through a challenge. So but we need people like yourself, Julie, who have gone through that and then share it with the world so that, they have, okay, I'm not the only one who's gone through or going through a hard time. There's others, there's people out there going through, like you said, there's people even going through worse out there than some of the.
There's always somebody worse off than you. Even if you can't imagine it, trust me, there's always somebody worse off than you.
Oh man, and some of the things I've heard as a substance abuse counselor just make my heart go, oh, right? Like,
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
I hear what clients have gone through, and I'm just like, oh well, I'm here to give you a hug if you need it, and let's do this one moment at a time right now. I'm not going to say one day, because you're looking at me like I'm telling the clients will look at me like, if I can get through the next 5 minutes, I'll be happy, right?
Yeah.
But thank God that the universe put it in my brain to never forget how I felt the last time, even before that, like, because I don't think I'd be here with you if I would have forgotten, right? Because it would have been like, oh, that wasn't so bad.
That one's so bad. Right.
I can do it again, right? And then I'd upset a lot of people. We might not,
I'm sure.
but
Mostly yourself. Yeah.
exactly. So I wonderful, wonderful time so far. But if people want to get your book, Julie, or get a hold of you, ask you questions, right? Because I know there's people in the audience are just going, I got to talk to her, because how did she do it, right? If they want to dive deeper, like, how do they get a hold of you?
I have a website. It's called juliebarthauthor.net. And I man it. So anybody who leaves any inquiries there, if you go there, then you can find Tatym's art. You can find out information about our charity. It's kind of like around base everything. My book is called, my book is on there as well, but it's called Notes from a BlackBerry. And excitingly enough, I just had a childhood friend of mine who lived next door. She did the audio version of it, which is really exciting for me. So it just came on audio, but it's Notes from a BlackBerry, like the BlackBerry, and it's on Amazon and anywhere else that you buy a book.
I love it. I love it. I'll be getting my copy for sure. Well, like I said, this has been an amazing time, Julie. Thank you so much for being here, but you're not quite off the hook just yet.
I never am. Story of my life.
My favorite question of all, and I always save it for last of all my guests, and it goes like this. What is the one piece of advice you could give my audience to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
I'm going to go right back to the stop worrying so much about what other people think. I think it shapes all of us and try, especially in an age of social media, we try so hard to present what we think other people want from us rather than who we really are. And it's so much energy trying to be someone you're not, when it's so much easier to love the person you are and be that person. So took me a lot of years to stop trying to please everybody else and just be me, whoever, whatever, if that's messy, if it's beautiful, whatever it is for that day, just be yourself. And it's amazing how quickly your life will clear up when you just are you, authentically you.
I love that, because I am so glad I finally listened to my sponsor and the mentors I had, which said it's none of your business what people think about you anyway.
Yeah.
And when I finally I understood that, like you, I'm like, I don't care what people think about me. I'm just going to be the
Isn't it so freeing? I mean, that was probably the most freeing thing that I've ever done is say, I don't care. You know,
and people can see you as a human being, because you're right. There's so much on social media where people are like taking pictures with a Lamborghini, but it's probably not even theirs, if you know what I mean. Dressed up in a nice suit, probably
and the filters, you know, like,
odd, right? So
yeah.
like when I do a video or something or a live, it's like, this is, yeah, you're getting me. There's no filters. This is just me. Which lead kind of a funny story. I've done this thing called 75 Hard, right? Which is this, it's called a mental toughness program, right? Andy Frisella, this guy, you have to look him up. But anyway, long story short, it was before my surgery, right? So I had back issues where I would go numb from the waist down. And I'd be doing this live all into the workout, and all of a sudden I'd fall on my face, right? And I'd pop back up and go, I'm okay, everybody, as I'm screaming, right? And people were like, oh, he's human. Right? Well, yeah, like I think we all need to just be ourselves. That's what the universe has created. Just be the best you that you can be. Show up authentically so that you can all have awesome conversations like me and Julie had today, and show up in the world to try to help somebody, right? And then make this world, like Julie has, a better place. So I appreciate you being here. You heard her, everybody. If Julie made you think, if she taught you something, if she made you smile, and my famous, if she made you go, I like that, please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people could find the podcast. And again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.